Good day, everyone. We are here to present our topic, the 1987 Philippine Constitution, Article 14, Section 1 and 2, Republic Act 10533 to enhance basic education, including ALS and learners with special needs, and Republic Act 8371, the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act. But before that, let us introduce ourselves first. I am John Darrell Villaver.
And I'm Jasmine Rose Tivery.
At the end of the lesson, students will understand the importance of education for all citizens as written in Article 14, Section 1 of 1987 Constitution. Learn about equality between men and women as stated in Article 2, Section 14 of the 1987 Constitution, and recognize the rights of indigenous peoples under the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997. So here, Can anybody explain what is happening in the picture? Yes. Those pictures, what are the things to be done in educational institutions? Article 14, Section 1 of the 1987 Constitution. The state shall protect and promote the right of all citizens to quality education at all levels and shall take appropriate steps to make such education accessible to all. Here in the Philippines, everyone has the right in education. This article wants to state not just to protect, but also to promote the right of everyone in education. In promoting and protecting education, it will take a lot of process. Hindi pwede nga magbasta-basta lang kita patukod kasang ka building or institution nga eskwelahan without proper process. Syempre, hindi dyan na anlatoon nanay kung ano gitbal ang mga needs, ano dapat ang idugang. Here are the examples of Article 14, Section 1 of the 1987 Constitution. The state must take steps to make education accessible to all. So, may dyan kita ka dyan ginaano nga mga free tuition para sa mga students sa colleges para accessible to all. Sa mga hindi pa kaya magbayad, at least free ka nanda. The state must recognize the role of public and private institutions in the educational system. The state must regulate all educational institutions. The state must ensure that educational institutions are owned by citizens of the Philippines or corporations with majority of Filipino ownership. The state must ensure that citizens of the Philippines control and administer educational institutions.
Next, we have Article 13, Section 2 of the 1987 Constitution. The state recognizes the role of women in nation building and shall ensure the fundamental equality before the law of women and men. Certain diseases, disorders, and conditions are peculiar to more serious or more prevalent in women. In this section, it focuses on promoting equality between men and women. The state must ensure that both sexes have equal rights. The section requires the state to actively work to ensure equality between men and women. For example, we have Magna Carta of Women or Republic Act No. 9710. This law promotes the rights of women and mandates the government to ensure their participation in nation-building activities, including representation in decision-making processes. It prohibits the state from supporting or recognizing laws that discriminate against women or men. So we have here the Family Code of the Philippines. While the Family Code has provisions that have been criticized for gender bias, ongoing reforms aim to eliminate discriminatory practices such as those affecting women's rights in marriage and property ownership. The section also requires the state to protect working women by providing safe and healthy working conditions. We have here one example of how the state protects working women by providing safe and healthy working conditions. For instance, the Occupational Safety and Health Standards or OSHS set by the Department of Labor and Employment or DOLEM mandate that employers provide a safe workplace for all employees, including specific provisions for women. This includes measures to prevent over workplace harassment and ensure safety and from gender violence.
Public Act Number 10533, the state shall establish, maintain, and support a complete, adequate, and integrated system of education relevant to the needs of the people, the country, and society at large. For this purpose, the state shall create a functional basic education system that will develop productive and responsible citizens equipped with essential competences, skills, and values for both lifelong learning and employment. As I said earlier, it will take a lot of process. You can't just establish or implement some things without proper process. Dapat ma-meet ang needs ng mga students before kita mag-establish. Sara din sa example ay ang K-12 where it is a big help for every student, like ang research. Before ka mag-college, you already know ang process, ano ba lang ang research kaya, whatsoever and everything. Also, sa K-12, there is a work immersion where you will be able to experience kag makahelp makatugro kanimo ka idea sa mga barilan mga program or course.
Now, let's proceed to the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997, or IPRA. The Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997, officially designated as Republic Act No. 8371, is a Philippine law that recognizes and promotes the rights of indigenous culture communities and indigenous peoples in the Philippines. Republic Act No. 8371, known as the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997, declares that the state shall recognize and promote all the rights of indigenous cultural communities or indigenous peoples, the government's basic services, health included. The state recognizes its obligations to respond to strong impression of the ICCs or IPs for cultural integrity by assuring maximum ICC or IP participation in the direction of education, health, as well as other services of ICCs or IPs in order to render such services more responsive to the needs and desires of these communities. Towards these ends, the state shall institute and establish the necessary mechanisms to enforce and guarantee the realization of these rights, taking into consideration their customs, traditions, values, beliefs, interests, and institutions, and to adopt and implement measures to protect their rights to their ancestral domains. Here we have some 4 examples of rights protected by Republic Act No. 8371. The ancestral domains, the right to own, use, develop, and control as ancestral lands, forests, pastures, and other lands. So the ICCs or the IPs have the right to own, use, develop, and control their ancestral lands, forests, and other natural resources. So this right is vital for their survival and cultural practices. Self-governance, the right to self-governance and empowerment. So the Act grants the ICCs or IPs the right to self-governance, empowering them to make decisions regarding their communities and resources. This includes establishing their own governance systems that reflect their cultural values, social justice, and human rights, the right to basic services including health care. ICCs or IPs are entitled to basic services including health care, education, and social welfare. The law aims to ensure that these services are accessible and relevant to their needs. Cultural integrity, the right to practice and revitalize cultural traditions and customs. The Act protects the right of ICCs or IPs to practice and revitalize their cultural traditions and costumes. This includes the preservation of languages, rituals, and other cultural expressions that define their identity. So for the overview, the Republic Act number 8371 or the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997 recognizes and promotes the rights of the indigenous cultural communities and the indigenous peoples in the Philippines. The Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997 is significant as it not only recognizes the rights of ICCs or IPs, but also it serves as a tool for social justice and equality in the Philippines.
To summarize everything, the 1987 Constitution and various laws emphasize the state's duty to ensure quality and accessible education for all, promote gender equality, and protect indigenous rights. The Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013 introduced universal kindergarten, added grades 11 and 12, and strengthened the curriculum to meet global standards. The Indigenous Peoples Act of 1997 safeguarded indigenous communities' right to land, self-governance, cultural integrity, and access to basic services. Overall, these laws highlight the state's role in fostering inclusive education, equality, and protection of marginalized groups.